Welcome back to another Elsie's Little Pickles, and unfortunately, this is what we get for taking time off and talking about things that are, I don't know, cute and fun, like fucking Halloween, and the fact that DC is going to potentially bring back the original monster series of Wolfman, Dracula, Frankenstein, and arguably the worst movie monster ever, the fucking Mummy.
How dare you?
I don't like the Mummy. It's too slow. It's like zombies for me. I mean, I don't mind. I don't mind like the Walking Dead zombies, because there's a storyline that I'm following. But like in general, you can keep the zombies because they move too slow. They just move.
Oh, what is the Mummy gonna do? Wipe my ass?
Well, no. But like at least in World War Z, they were fucking hauling ass, and there was something to be terrified by, right? Something comes at you, their arms straight out.
So basically,
wrapped in
you're
bandages.
unnerved by Boston Marathon zombies.
Yeah, that would unnerve me. That would fucking unnerve me. Boston Marathon zombies definitely unnerves me.
Yeah.
But we can talk about the DC thing later, because, I mean, we really did put a concerted...
I just pictured, the world is invaded by Night of the Living Dead type zombies, and you're just like, what? This has got you guys so freaked out as you're just running little circles around each one, slapping it.
It wouldn't bother me. That wouldn't bother me fucking at all. It's when they can
Steve's
move
all
quick.
Russian dancing around the zombie.
Hey. I'm doing river dance. So, we made this actual concerted effort to try to stay away from politics. And in doing so, all this shit happened. While in Detroit, speaking to the Detroit Economic Club, Trump decided to shit on Detroit by telling them that if Kamala Harris wins, guess what? It's going to be horrible. It's going to be just like Detroit everywhere. Is that how you get votes? Honestly, like there is a cognitive thing that's happening that is not being spoken about. Now, this doesn't have anything to do with liking or disliking Trump. This has something to do with, under any other circumstance, if some of the shit he was doing and saying was part of a presidential election prior to 2016, it would be all over. It would be a landslide for the opponent. They would just wipe the floor with him. Because I'm
going to show up at an AA meeting and just let everybody know that if they don't vote for me for mayor, the whole town's going to become alcoholics.
Oh, yeah. Well, of course. Because that makes as much sense as the shit he says. And then today he was at the economic policy interview in Chicago. So
it's a beautiful thing.
He was interviewing with Bloomberg at the Economic Club of Chicago, and it was a fucking mess. Like, he couldn't answer anything. And even the interviewer was like, dude, that's not the question. And Trump,
swear to God, I was watching it, and it, listening to his answers, which was, I don't even know where to begin. I mean, I literally laughed so hard, I almost spit out my neighbor's dog.
He spit out your neighbor's dog.
Like, literally, I almost came out my nose.
Oh, shit.
I don't understand how somebody could watch this and think, this guy's a great candidate.
Well, that's my point, is like, take everything out of it, okay? Everything. Take the divisiveness out of it. Take the loyalty to your candidate out of it. Take I'm conservative or Republican or Democrat or liberal. Take all of that bullshit, for lack of a better word. Take
why
all of it
I'm
out.
not voting for Trump?
Why?
You want to know why? Because I am not brain dead.
Yeah. You know what? I wish I could say that about all of his supporters. I wish I could say that they weren't all brain dead. I think some of them are. I think a lot of them, unfortunately, are really good people that they're in the wrong, the wrong news feeds. They got sucked into, the algorithm that is just feeding their brain consistently with malware, for lack of a better, because like you can't. All right, so every single time you see them somebody in the news or online, content maker, whatever, interviewing a Trump supporter, and they do the old switcheroo on them, where they go, "Can I ask you a few questions about Joe Biden? How do you feel about the fact that he tried to, blah, 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 or that he did this, that, and the other?" And every single time they'll say, "Oh, he's a horrible person," or "Kamala's a horrible person." And then the interviewer will go, "Oh, I'm sorry. Can we do that over? I mistakenly read the questions about Trump." And then they ask the same questions about Trump and they change their opinion. It's because they're more concerned about being right.
Yeah.
Or not even being right. They're more concerned about being consistently loyal. And that's where I see the biggest problem is that there is this, ride or die with this guy. And these people just don't, unfortunately, have the understanding of what's going on. And when confronted with it, they say it's a conspiracy theory, or they'll say that's fake news, or they'll say, they're just out to get him. It's just lawfare, or any number of excuses as to why this poor billionaire has been treated so badly. Which, I mean, come on.
I feel so bad for him.
Poor Trumpy. But it just, like when you're supposed to be the guy that everyone trusts with the economy more than your opponent, and you can't answer any of those questions, which were in general, from what I saw, I didn't see the whole thing. I did read excerpts from it. But what I read, they were kind of softball questions. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, because you obviously had more time with that particular story than I did. Was there anything that was like so difficult that
no,
there was no gotchas?
He didn't really answer any of the questions. He would take the time allotted, like he was questioned about tariffs, and he launched into a little tirade about how Biden might be more intelligent than Harris, and Biden is bad man. He talked about taxing Macron's, France's wine coming in.
Right.
And the interviewer kind of bounced his foot like, is this dude for real?
Yeah, because that's the thing is with his tariffs, it seems like what it boils down to for him. Okay. If your company opens shop in the United States, you no longer have tariffs, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. That works if you're, doing assembly. That works if you're doing, warehouse type stuff. That works if you're doing, shipping and receiving. That works, you could even say, in manufacturing to some degree, obviously. But when you get to things like champagne, where you can't just pick up those vineyards and transplant them to the United States. So the reason why that wine is considered valuable is because of the land that it grows on, the soil, the longitude, the latitude. There's a lot of things, the weather conditions. There are a lot of things that go into a vineyard. You don't just go, "Oh, okay, well, I don't want to have a tariff, so I'm going to pick up my business and bring it to the United States."
I don't mean to change the topic here, but upon looking at my portrait, I feel like I just need to get a little captain's hat and bleach my beard white, and I'm going to look like George R.R. Martin.
Yeah, either that or...
And I'm slightly disturbed.
Actually, now that you say it, you kind of do look like him. The first...
missing the bulby nose.
When you first said that, the captain's hat, I immediately went to the captain of the Titanic.
You know what he looks like? Actually, I do know what he looks like.
Oh, with the beard and all that. Yeah. No, you got a George R.R.
I was talking,
going.
and I'm just, the way the light was hitting me, I was like, Oh my God, I have the George R. R. Martin starter kit going.
Yeah, you do. Actually, dude, you really do.
I'm a little disturbed.
Oh, shit. All right. So,
Sorry, go ahead.
It's all right. But what I found disturbing was the fact that he kept referring to, and he's been doing this a lot lately, when he gets lost in his word salad stuff, he'll say, no, I meant to do that. It's what I call the weave.
Yes. He mentioned that, like, I think I saw 3 times.
Yeah, he keeps saying the weave, the weave, the weave. And supposedly
I'm
that's
not sure if he's talking about his words or what's on his head.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Because, I mean, I just don't understand why he thinks that saying some sort of made up word in response to what clearly is coming across as cognitive dissonance, right? So, like, he's clearly either ignoring the questions or trying to bob and then weave, because bob and weave is it's a boxing term. I understand that. If he said, that's part of my bob and weave. Okay, but he can't say that, because that means he's telling you, I'm trying to duck the question and swing with something else, right?
Yes.
So what is just the weave? Is that just where you take a bunch of words and say things? And I'm going to do a weave right now, okay? I'm going to say pickle juice, apple, box, monitor, keyboard. That doesn't mean that I said anything. And just because I call it a weave doesn't mean that it is anything. It just is words. It's just fucking word salad. So there were just a number of things that caught my eye with this. One, apparently, even when people who know what tariffs do and they explain it to him like he's 5, he still doesn't believe it. He still thinks that he knows more. He's got some sort of secret that no one else. He's entitled to knowledge that no one else could possibly have. What the fuck are you talking about? So then, as normal, when he gets frustrated, then he starts to bash the reporters, because that looks good for the clips. So at one point he says, let's see, where was it? The reporter said, the Wall Street Journal estimating that his economic proposal would raise the national debt by upwards of $7 trillion. The former president fell back on his standard playbook, bashing the interviewer. What does the Wall Street Journal know? They've been wrong about everything. And so have you, by the way. You've been wrong, Trump replied, crossing his arms and curling into his seat. You've been wrong all your life on this stuff, he added. So like a petulant child, he crosses his arms and leans back. And we've seen this. We've seen him do this with world leaders. We've seen him do this with congressional leaders. When he gets put into a pickle, he'll just go nasty, call you a name, cross his arms, sit back, and pout like that's going to solve the problem. And, the fuck are we doing even having a conversation about this guy actually being in charge of the United States government? We're talking about the most powerful job in the fucking world.
What needs to be done is these interviewers need to respond to that with a, well, sir, can you tell me something you've been right about?
Yeah. Yeah, have a little courage. But see, that's the thing is I think that a lot of these interviewers, they're intimidated to go after him because they're afraid that then they'll be the target of MAGA. And that's the power of Trump. It's not that Trump himself has any power. He's got a bunch of fucking stooges that are willing to break out their AKs and their keyboards and fucking tear people up, whether online or in person. Like, that's it. That's his only power. Yeah. And if he loses that power, no more Mr. Scary Bully in the room. You know what I mean? Like, I would love to interview Trump because I would be like, fuck off with that. You know what I mean? Like, you want to call me names, that's fine. Do that off air, or do that if you want on your own time. But more importantly, answer the fucking question, you little simple turd. You know, like, I would love to be able to interview him, you know.
But you and I would never get the opportunity to interview him because, I mean, he just turned down, what was it, the Fox Business Channel today? to do an interview?
I don't doubt that. I think he's done with Fox. I think he sees these last few days as like, I need to run against Fox to really shore up my base. So I think he's going to go full OAN and shit like that. I think he's going to go full Laura Loomer, full, Marjorie Taylor Greene, full Boebert, full Jim Jordan. Like that's really what he's going to be looking for. I wouldn't be surprised if he does Ted Cruz's podcast as well as Joe Rogan's. I think I think it's good that Rogan will have him on, but I think Rogan should also at least offer for the Harris campaign and Harris to come on.
If he loses this campaign, what is the over-under if he gives a speech afterwards?
Oh, I have no idea. but I would put money on it that regardless of what happens,
They're just going to stack the podium, just put a bunch of ketchup bottles in the podium so he can just stand there and just throw them at people.
But he won't do that, though. He won't do that because I guarantee you he will give a speech whether he wins or loses. And what people have to understand who listen, right, is that I honestly don't care who you vote for. I really don't. You got to vote your own conscience. And if your conscience says Trump, I disagree with you, and I can give you a laundry list of reasons why that have nothing to do with anything personal, that have only to do with policy and how his policies will inevitably affect you in the negative. I could do that all day. All right. But what gets me, I think, is that people don't understand how close this election is. Like, no matter what you see in the polls, that's all bullshit.
Could we possibly get somebody to fund us? And by fund us, I mean get us costumes that make us look like Heinz ketchup bottles and just show up at his rallies and fling ourselves around.
Oh, like start a mosh pit as ketchup bottles?
Yeah.
That'd be good. I mean,
we could have a little pump we hit and it shoots out ketchup at people.
See, even if Trump thought that was funny and wanted to do it and said he was going to fund us, I wouldn't believe him. You know why?
He's not going to pay us.
Well, no, he's not going to pay anyone because that's what he does is he hires people and then he fucking doesn't pay them.
Which brings us to the bus company.
Yeah. And not for the first time.
No. He's got a history of, can I hire you for a job?
Wink, wink. Nudge, nudge.
By hire, I mean, you'll do the job, but I won't pay you.
And if I'm not mistaken, this particular bus company was pretty smart because they took the job, but they said that they wouldn't do the round trip unless they got paid in between the drop off and the pickup.
Correct.
So they were smart. You know what I mean? They obviously got some sort of a down payment. I'll put money on it. So they said,
I want to know.
They probably said they wanted half up front or a quarter up front and then the rest in between.
I want to know how many of these people are now willing to not vote for Trump after having to walk 5 miles in the desert
at night. I don't know. I got to figure that there is at least a few that were so upset about that circumstance that went full.
How many of these people were too
elderly,
embarrassed to call their children, be like, hey, could you come and pick me up?
If they could, you know what I mean? You don't know how many people actually flew in for that. You don't know how many people actually lived close to there versus, had family members close to there that could even come and pick them up. You know what I mean? And then you got to try to, explain to your elderly parents how to drop a pin so on GPS where the fuck
like a
they
bobby
are.
pin. I got it.
Yeah.
I dropped it on the sand.
Yeah, exactly. That would have been mom. I dropped a bobby pin on the sand. Can you find me now? No.
I don't know how this is going to help you with cell reception and finding me, but I dropped 2.
And the thing of it is like, how many of those people potentially could have been handicapped in wheelchairs and trying to get pushed, even if that dirt road was firmly packed, you're still talking a lot of sand, you know? and here's the thing. I want to say I feel bad for them. I do. I want to say that. I'm not going to, though. Because at this point, if you don't realize what a shyster this motherfucker is, what a con man he is, and what a poor candidate he is, then maybe you deserve to be left in the middle of the desert with a 2 miles? 2 mile walk?
No, it was 5 miles.
5 mile. Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe you deserve a 5 mile walk to think about your decisions. Think about some of the choices you've made. 5 miles is a good long walk to figure out how you ended up in the middle of the night walking in the desert for 5 miles. And it all goes back to the same thing. Trump. That's how.
Well, they were only 465 miles short of the journey the Jews went from Egypt to Israel.
Well, we all know
Could have
that.
taken them 40 days and 40 nights.
Yeah.
But in the biblical, it took, 40 years?
Yeah. It was 40 years.
To go 470 miles, something that would only take 13 days to walk.
Something like that. But they didn't have.
God made them.
They didn't
Took
have
away their GPS.
Didn't have maps, didn't have GPS. They're like, hey, look, it's our rest stop. No, this is where we started. Fuck, this looks like Egypt. Turn around, everyone.
Damn it, Frank, you walked in a circle.
Everyone turn around. Time to be the wandering Jew again. I don't know. I don't know with the couple of weeks that Trump has been having how his numbers are staying where they're staying. And in even some cases, he's getting a little bit of ground. His floor is coming up a little bit, which is to be expected. At this point in the election, you expect those things to happen. But under these circumstances, I am a bit shocked. I'm a bit shocked that people aren't starting to wake up and realize, oh, yeah, he's not a good dude.
Well, it's really, a precursor to what this country will look like.
Yeah, everyone will
4
be.
years if he gets elected.
Yeah, in 4 years, everyone will be fucking walking and everything will be desert and everything's going to be shit. And we're going to be
sitting there going, man, if only this was Detroit.
Yeah. Oh, God, I would kill to be in Detroit right now.
At least there'd be a Coney Island.
Yeah, or something. Buddy's Pizza. I don't know. I don't know, man. It just seems like he consistently and constantly finds a way to step in the shit. And like I said, after just look,
if it looks like shit,
yeah,
and it smells like shit,
you can probably skip tasting it. But again, he's one that never seems to miss the opportunity to either screw some things up and then try to spin it.
No. He only picks the best people and the best companies.
Oh my God. Yeah. Then there was, as if things couldn't get worse.
But wait, there's more.
If you want to know what the future with Trump looks like, go to North Carolina. I forget which small city in North Carolina it was, but there was a MAGA.
It was a whole county.
It was the what?
It was an entire county.
Oh, it was the entire county. Okay.
Yeah.
MAGA militia in North Carolina was basically hunting FEMA. Be very, very quiet. I'm hunting FEMA. So the Meal Team 6 and the Gravy Seals were out and about with their walking up and down the streets.
Fat dude.
Yeah, that's all they were.
A stupid big gun, throwing a glass of water on the ground, like, oh no, there's flooding.
Yeah, again, you're talking. This was this was the militia, and they were doing it for Trump, and they made it very clear, and they chased FEMA out. Okay, great. Well, congratulations. Now you guys get shit. You get shit.
If ever there was a moment to take down someone's name.
Yeah. Excuse me, sir, with the big scary gun and all the military gear. Could I get your name and phone number and address so that I can report you?
Because you ain't getting no help.
So my question is, this is my big question for this pod. Is that Because I've asked this before. I've asked before, what does the beginning of a civil war look like? Modern day. And it's obviously it's not, it's not happening like it happened in our Civil War. It's not going to be, North versus South and very clear lines and costumes that are appropriate and easy to identify who is who and all that. That's not going to be the case.
I can tell you how it's going to start.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right. Lay it on me.
It's going to be a meal team 6. What? There's no chicken nuggets? The ice cream machine is out?
Yeah, exactly. But that's kind of what's happening down there, right? So I think that you have a tinderbox in Florida and the Carolinas. Everywhere.
They took away the McRib again?
Yeah. The McRib. It's war. I think that it's going to the level of all right, let me back up a second. I watched this video of this lady, and I think I discussed this on the last pod, where she went off saying, this is ridiculous. All the money that we've sent you to Ukraine should be used for this, right? And I understand that from a very simplistic view of the world and a very simplistic view of your life and a very simplistic thing of make my life normal again. I want my life, to not be interrupted for more than a couple of days, And that's the way vast majority of people are. Even if it comes to doing work around your house, you don't want them there for more than a week. Get the shit done. Do it. Fucking, here's more money. Go faster. But that's the thing. There is so much devastation, so much damage, and so much of it is not going to be insured. So much of it is not going to be rebuilt right away. And even if you had every builder in the fucking country shipped down to Florida and every piece of construction equipment to help with clearing and cleaning up and redoing the fucking phone lines and redoing the cell towers and redoing the electrical and the sewers and all that. If you had everyone who was a licensed builder or contractor in the country sent down to Florida, it still wouldn't get done any faster. It still takes a certain amount of time. Even if you have all the supplies in the world available to you, it still takes time to build a house, especially one that's been blown off its foundation or needs a new foundation now. It still takes time to redo the wires, especially if you're going, wait a minute, every year hurricane comes through, we get fucking stuck with these wires going down. Why don't we put them underground?
Speaking of being blown off of foundations, did you see Trump farting on stage?
No. Where was this? Please tell me it was like last couple days.
I'm going to have to tell you to look up the Jimmy Kimmel YouTube video from a couple of days ago. I think the caption starts with Trump farts on stage.
Oh, I've got to look this up.
It's very entertaining. But apparently, yeah, you could hear him struggle. He was talking and you could almost hear him try to push, and just the tiniest little...
Just a little queefer?
Yeah, I'm not sure if it came out of his butt or his neck vagina. But one of them farted.
Well,
it's very entertaining.
I found the link, and I highly recommend everyone look up Trump farts on stage, Jimmy Kimmel. But yeah, getting back to the whole Florida thing, like, to me, I'm looking at what is clearly a tragedy and clearly not, for the people that are victims of it, necessarily a political thing, but they're turning it into a political thing. So you see a lot of these Trump supporters trying to turn it into a political thing, and in the course of doing so, riling up other people in the same vein. When this was a weather incident, then
FEMA had to leave that county.
Yeah, when you're to the point where you got people in your community scaring away the people who are bringing the aid, don't be surprised that your shit doesn't get fixed first. Don't be surprised that everyone doesn't wait until those guys go away. You know what I mean? Like, all right, the whole community has to suffer because Billy Bob and Joey Bob decided that they were tough guys walking around with their ARs. Maybe those motherfuckers should be called to the carpet by the community.
Yes.
I see that as the potential for where especially at this point in time. You know what I mean? We're literally just a couple of weeks away from an election, and if it doesn't go the way that they want, specifically, MEAL Team 6 and the Navy squeals, I think that they could definitely stir up a lot of shit down there, and I think that that's where you could see kind of a focal point being regarding that. Now, am I right? I don't know. Time will tell. We'll see. However, if I see any point where the tinder box is ripe and the flame is near the fuse, it would be in that area because of the devastation that's come through. And again, I completely empathize with those people. No one wants to lose their house. No one wants to have damage done to their house. No one wants any of the things that's happened to those people to happen to anyone. However, you do live in Florida. You do know that hurricanes come. You do know that it's a potential risk. And you took that risk. You could have lived in fucking the desert of Nevada and never had that fucking problem. No hurricanes happening in Nevada, right?
Yep.
No hurricanes in New Mexico. You can still have the nice weather. Granted, not necessarily beachfront, And I get the idea of, you know what? I love this weather and I love the beach and I love the ocean so much. I'm willing to take that chance. Great.
Well, as Jon Stewart said, Marjorie Taylor Greene has blamed again the Jewish space lasers. They're manipulating the weather. And as Jon Stewart said, hey, if we as Jews could affect the weather, we would aim it at Florida and remove the humidity.
Yeah, exactly. That would be it. It would be it. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not a big fan of Florida. I'm just not, as far as like the weather and the humidity and the fucking snakes, the pythons and the alligators. You can keep all that shit. I'm not interested. I'm not really interested in Disney. You know what I mean? I wouldn't mind. I've never been. I wouldn't mind going down to Miami because I hear they're off the fucking hook when it comes to partying. So I wouldn't mind Miami or the Keys and stuff like that. I mean, I can definitely see doing it as a vacation, but like every time I've been to Florida.
We spent some time down there.
Well,
we spent a month and a half, and there comes a time where you're just like, yeah, where else can we go?
Well, yeah. I mean, that's it. I don't mind going down there for a week, but I did early on in my career, I did a month down there with my buddy Kirk, and I had just a negative experience from day one in the state as far as like performing. Like we were at this one place, and there was this little fat kid, right, who was the MC, and he's just starting out. He's got no money. He's making $50 for the week or something like that. All of us go through it. That's part of the gig. But they hand me and they hand Kirk buffet coupons, so we can go to the buffet anytime we want. I'm like, well, I'm not going to the fucking buffet. So I give the kid my buffet ticket.
Mm-hmm.
And boy, did that set off the food and beverage manager who was in charge of the comedy club. So he did one of these finger pokes into my chest. How do you think that ended up? I almost broke his fucking wrist. I almost broke his fucking arm. I get done after this incident. The show ends. We go back to our rooms or whatever, and me and Kirk are hanging out. And there's a phone call, and I have to come down to the check-in office, and it's the fucking agent, it's just screaming at me, right? And I try to explain. I'm like, look, if you would let somebody put their hands on you for trying to do something kind to another performer, I don't want to work for you anymore. And they go, well, you're never working for us again. I'm like, yeah, whatever. 10 years go by, 10, 12 years, maybe even a little bit longer. I call and see if I can get some dates, and they pulled my file, and they're like, oh, no, you're banned permanently. I'm like, oh, that's still on? Okay. That's cool. And let's put it this way, I regret nothing. The only thing I do regret is that I didn't actually break his fucking wrist and arm. Like, I came very close. I could feel it starting to go, and I let go.
You'd be shocked how easy it is to break someone's wrist.
I know. Oh, I know. But moving along, the other big and I don't know if this is true or not. This is what bothers me, is I don't know when. All right, so let's back up a little bit. For our listeners who have been with us long enough, they know that I'm a fan of the idea of UFOs and alien life. I'm a fan of the idea of disclosure. I'm a fan of the idea that maybe there's some other intellectual creatures out in the universe that can help us move forward and get past this election, right?
Mm-hmm.
But apparently, the Pentagon has been stumped by what they refer to as a mothership releasing drones. So my question is, A, do you know if this story is true? B, do you know how long it's been going on? C, is this just like a psyops, or is this, in your opinion, a controlled disclosure or about to be a chaotic disclosure?
Well, I can tell you that it is on Twitter, it is on Reddit, and if you're not convinced past that, it's actually on Politico, it's on the Military Times, it's on the Wall Street Journal, the Daily Mail.
So
Daily
what are
Beast.
they saying? What are they saying? Now, normally, I would be the one that would bring this particular news story, and I would be able to speak eloquently about all the ups and downs and ins and outs on this. However, on this one, I just became aware of it very, very recently and haven't had a chance to dig in. And when I approached you with it, you were like, "Oh yeah, I know, I've been following this one." So, what's the long and short?
It essentially started, oh crap, I just had a video start out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And it started apparently back last December and has happened several times, including at Langley, Lockheed Martin, I'm reading, and the Skunk Works. Oh, no, I'm sorry.
Lockheed Martin Skunk Works.
Yeah, that is the Skunk Works. My bad.
Yeah.
But they're also talking, some of these resembled your jellyfish, what I called the Imperial droid.
Yeah, they look like an Imperial droid. So
sorry, I had a cough.
That's all right.
But it started last December and lasted for 17 days at night.
So were they seeing them in the daytime or only at night?
I am just reading at night.
Okay.
They apparently, let's see if I can get to the actual quote. For at least 17 nights last December, swarms of noisy, small UFOs were seen at dusk, moving at rapid speeds, flashing green light and white lights and red lights, penetrating the highly restricted airspace above Langley, which is in Virginia. So you have this going on in Virginia and California. They bypassed all drone countermeasures like it was nothing. So at the very least, whoever is controlling these either knows drone countermeasures for the United States, or there were championship, class drone
operators.
Yeah.
So,
there's evidence apparently that they can be seen on radar entering the atmosphere above these places, meaning that they have come from higher up.
So what do you think? Do you think that this is actual alien technology or technology from another planet? Is this technology that's coming from one of our adversaries, one of our allies?
I can't say if it's from an adversary or an ally. I do know that I know of no drone that could operate in higher atmosphere because of the freezing.
Right.
So that begs some questions.
But you can almost dismiss that because the drone technology exists in and of itself. And I don't think that it would be a big stretch for the government to have figured out how to take it to that height at some point between Obama and his incessant use of drones, which I'm sure was very, very good for the drone, the coffers of the drone technology. I'm sure that amped things up enough to where they were.
Our drones are released by fighter jets. I don't know if you know that.
I didn't.
They'll be
actually.
flying. They can release hundreds of them. But that is not as high up as what apparently these would have been launched from. Because they came
So they know that
down.
the launch came from higher, is what they're saying.
Yes.
Is it not possible, though, to think that drone technology may not need the jet to release it? Isn't it possible to think that we've gotten to the point past that? You know, I mean, look, if you saw...
Well, you gotta also add in the monetary needs to do something like this. This is not going to be someone from the neighborhood.
No.
Or neighborhoods.
No. But
another country who would be able to fund something like this would be astronomical. So there's only really one, which would be China, but it just doesn't sound like something they would do.
Oh, if
they had the capability, yes.
Yeah, I don't put it past any country.
I don't think they would take the chance of getting caught.
Look, I don't put that sneaky shit past any country, whether friend or foe, or somewhere in between. I don't put it past any country. That's just part of the world. As you know, that kind of spy shit, espionage. That's all just part of. Like, every country expects it from every country. Some are better.
Let me ask you this: in the last year, I'll expand it to 2 years. How many times have we had a close call with a meteor in the last 2 years? A little more often,
a lot
than
more
in
often.
the past.
Yeah, and
they spoke about the big meteor that's supposed to pass between the moon and us, or something like that.
Okay.
Think about the time period. They called it Mama or something.
Oh, yeah.
That's what they're talking about.
Well, that is what I was going to say. Is once I forget the name of it. It's Omamu or something.
Yeah, something like that.
Anyways, point
Dormammu.
being,
let's just call it Dormammu. The Marvel villain.
I think you're right in the sense of ever since that was first discovered, we've seen more meteors. And I don't know if that has anything to do. And didn't we also try to explode a meteor to see if we could?
Yes.
I wonder how much.
Well, not exploded, knock it off of a trajectory.
Right. But essentially they used an explosive to do that. You're going to have some fragments come off. And even if it's only the size of a football, by the time it hits the fucking earth, it's still the size of a fucking football and it's a meteorite.
Well, no, a lot of it will burn up.
Well, that's what I'm saying is even if a lot of it burns up and all you have left is something the size of a football, that's still a fucking rock football hitting the fucking planet.
Which happens all the time.
And yeah, exactly. It happens all the time. But it does seem like there's a lot more of that shit going on. And it does seem like now that we've got the James Webb telescope out, is it the Webb? I always forget which one was first.
Well, yeah, there's Voyager 1. There's James Webb. I'm
Webb's the last one, right? Hubble.
Yeah.
Hubble was the one in between.
That was the one I was thinking of.
I can never remember which one goes first. So right now, ever since the James Webb has gone out, have you noticed and this is fantastic for science, right? It's like, oh, look at this. Oh, look at that. Look at that. We never knew, or holy shit. But with that,
there's a galaxy that looks like a question mark.
Yeah, exactly. There's an entire galaxy. It's the question mark galaxy.
In between Andromeda and this other galaxy, Waldo floated by.
So we don't know what we don't know, but we're discovering a lot of shit quick. But in that interim, we're seeing more of the UAP sightings. We're seeing, I'm sorry, I'm old school. I have a hard time saying UAP. I understand the reasoning why, and I agree with the reasoning why, but it's a fucking UFO. We've had more meteor shit happening. We've seen, just in general, a lot of weird shit. And I'm starting to wonder if it's possible that Trump is actually an alien. I guess that's really what I'm getting to with this whole thing. Is it possible that he is an alien? And
Well, that would explain his makeup.
yeah. And why Melania looks like a lizard.
You think he wakes up and just slams his face into like an orange sponge?
He's got to have something.
The ears aren't done. It's like a circle.
Yeah, it's like he just puts a stamp. It's like a stamp.
Yeah.
And I say this half jokingly, but I also say it half serious in the sense that I cannot look at Melania and not see a very attractive lizard lady. Am I wrong?
She's got a lizard tail.
No, she's got those.
She tucks it.
She got that very reptilian look.
It's the eyes.
It's the eyes, the cheekbones, everything. She fucking nose. She looks like a fucking reptile.
I was suspicious when I saw 2 layers of eyes blink.
Yeah. Well, we have seen that. And I know this is all tinfoil hat shit to most people, but the fact of the matter is that, all right, how many people did you say were reporting that story? You had
there was a ton of papers, like legit papers.
Political?
Or publications. I mean, the Daily Mail, the Wall Street Journal, the Military Times, the Daily Beast, Politico.
I don't put anything into like the Daily Mail. I don't buy anything that they have to say.
I completely agree with you, but the fact that it's on Politico, the Wall Street Journal.
Yeah, but it was in
Military Times.
Military Times. That's the one that kind of messes with me and makes me go, okay, well, I can't really see much reason for the Military Times to be publishing this unless it was something that they were concerned about or they had reason to be.
It's also in the New Yorker, the USA Today.
Okay, again,
space.com.
This is what I'm talking about. When you have something like this go on, and it's been going on for damn near a year.
You know what? It's got to be true because it's in mothership.sg.
Oh, well, this conversation's over. That's another Elsie's little pickles, motherfucker.
Fox News.
See, and that's my point.
And Fox News from March 14th of last year.
So when you have, whether you agree with those news sources or you don't, or whether you think they're legitimate or you don't, when you have that many across that much of a political spectrum or a scientific spectrum, or just in general, when you have that many different sources, the first thing that I assume is when I see a news story that is almost identical in its content as far as like what it's reporting, not necessarily the way it's reporting it, but what it's reporting. I got to imagine that there is at least some nugget of truth in there somewhere, because otherwise all of these contrary to each other news sources would not all be reporting the same fucking thing.
I mean, even it's behind a paywall, so I can't read the whole thing.
I fucking hate when they do that. Yeah.
U.S. Air Force General Mark Kelly is quoted as to talking about it.
And he's no slouch. That guy's an astronaut. Did you know that?
He literally says they've been flying over Langley on Virginia's shoreline, and they're not sure if or how to even stop them. They've bypassed their drone security. Take that for whatever you think it's worth.
So I have to say that this does, and again, I know that.
And this isn't one drone. This is
multiple.
Called a swarm. Both Langley and Skunkworks. Which, can we get a new name for that?
No, I love
Skunkworks.
that name.
I mean, that, you like it?
I love Skunkworks. I think that have you seen the logo?
No.
Oh, it's amazing. You got to love Skunkworks. Trust me. Take my word on this one. Take my word on it. And you're just saying that because you could never.
Smelly?
No, you were saying that. I guarantee you're saying that they need something else because as a kid you got teased relentlessly by me and mom because you couldn't say the word skunk.
No, I have a hard time with it because every time I say it, I giggle.
Yeah. Well, you used to say stunk instead of skunk because you just couldn't wrap your head around.
Well, it's like, why are people putting K where there should be a T?
So
it's a stunk.
I know that this is tinfoil hat territory for a lot of people, but
Are we talking verb or noun here?
yeah,
An
but
adjective or a noun?
the reason why I say this is something that we should be paying attention to is because if you think about it, every major news story kind of comes out slow. Like the real ones. They come out
Trickles.
just little trickle here, little trickle there. And that's usually like when you go back then and look at it in its totality, you go, well, how did we not see this? How do we not as a civilization or as a country or as a community even, how did we not see that this is what they were saying? And I think it's because of the trickle. And every once in a while, you'll get a big blast out like this, or you get a big blast like the hearings with David Grush, right? And I know it sounds like tinfoil hat territory, but what the fuck is going on? I'm not saying that it has to be aliens, and I'm not saying that aliens exist or don't exist. I'm saying that the universe is pretty fucking big, and it's pretty packed with a lot of solar systems and a lot of galaxies and a lot of stars and a lot of planets, and I'm sure that some other form of biological, whether we would recognize it or not recognize it as biological life, exists somewhere within. All right?
Well, I know a certain someone is going to tell you that with this happening, you got to elect him as president because he will ship them out.
Nobody's better. Nobody's
they're
better.
only sending the anal probers.
Nobody
the
can
ones
handle
that
aliens.
snatch you while you're sleeping.
I'm the best with aliens. I've negotiated with aliens, and I've got the aliens under control. We're going to round them all up, and we're going to shove them back out in space.
I've gotten a little
I've
bit
been
better.
talking to Melania.
We've discussed this. I've got a concept of a plan.
So I know, like I said, I know people think that that's crazy talk, but I think it's important when it's not just the big stories, but some of the smaller stories that come out. And one of those smaller ones was Jeremy Corbell, apparently.
Yeah.
I don't know if you heard about this, but him and George Knapp specifically had to increase their security because because they were basically given a warning, and we'll talk about this in another show because I still have a lot of research to do on this one, but it's the Immaculate Constellation program, and apparently their involvement,
not to be confused with Immaculate Constipation.
Nope, this is the constellation, not the constipation. It's the movement, not the lack of movement.
Lack of movement.
So apparently they were, and again, I'm speaking with limited, if any, knowledge on this at this point. I just saw a video clip where they were talking about it. I do have to dig in deeper on it. I am very curious about the Immaculate Constellation Project. Apparently this is kind of the umbrella under everything falls, which in and of itself would be a huge news story. But if you've got guys like, George Knapp and Jeremy Corbell being, physically having their lives threatened, that cannot be the case in this country, especially when you're talking about something like this, where it's this. Yeah, you could say it's a case of national security. Sure. But it's also potentially the greatest discovery that's ever fucking happened since the dawn of time for this planet. So you got to kind of weigh that out. You know what I mean? Yeah, national security, sure, but every nation is going to be worried about national security. So how about we just talk about it in global security? Like all of the nations will get together and fight if there's a problem here. But if not, let's see what's what. Let's talk to them.
I go there and just run around with my arms flailing. Lord Vader's coming.
Yeah, no,
Lord Vader's coming.
I actually already booked your ticket.
Everybody look busy.
I already booked your ticket for that flight. So like I said, I don't know what to make of that story. I do know that I'm fascinated by it. I do know that we're going to have to talk about it more, and we will have to dive deep into Project Immaculate Constellation. I'm fascinated with that idea of disclosure, especially in our lifetime. There's been so many things like that, though, that I never thought that I would see. And I'm sure you too, and maybe we'll wrap this all together for the next podcast of things that we never expected to see. Like I never expected to see, the potential for pot to be nationally legal. I never thought I'd see that.
Mhm.
That's a big difference than disclosure and fucking aliens and alien civilizations visiting the planet, obviously. But there are things like
maybe
that.
they're here for our pot.
Maybe they are. Wouldn't that be something? We've come for your pot.
We got a different type of green card.
So that's one thing that I would like to go over. In the short term, anyone who has any information on Project Immaculate Constellation or anything that's gone on with George Knapp or Jeremy Corbell, please send us that information to elsieslittlepickles@gmail.com. Now,
Or any information on Project Bluebeam.
yeah, anything. Or Flick the Beam. Project Flick the Beam. We would really like a lot of links for that one.
But only flick the beam.
Yeah. So to switch gears 100%, how do you feel about DC bringing back the classic horror movies? Since this is the season, and we have been trying desperately to make sure that every episode has a little bit of Halloween in it, how do you feel about the idea of like a new werewolf?
Well, the legend of the werewolf. Werewolf. It's fascinating. I mean, I don't know what you know about the history of werewolves.
I know enough to know that they are actually referred to as lichens. I'm pretty good with I'm pretty good with my werewolf history, I would say.
But really, the history of I just want to dump this because it's personal knowledge, goes back to the Epic of Gilgamesh, where Gilgamesh rejects a lover because she turned her former lover into a wolf.
Okay.
So there's that. I don't have a problem with them doing a werewolf.
I don't see. That's the thing. I don't have a problem with the werewolf.
That there'd be a movie, but if it's DC, it'll probably flop because that's what they've done lately.
Yeah, they used to be the dark, cool, edgy, and now they're just the dorky. Like they don't take big enough swings. So I think you've got this opportunity with the werewolf. The movie's already shot, from what I understand, so it's already in the can. Whether or not it's going to be good or not, who fucking knows? But if they do it right, if they do it really well, and they make it where it's suspenseful and there's a story, and it's not just some guy becoming a hairy wolf, you know, like even when you go back to Jack Nicholson's Wolfman,
yeah,
right? Was it Wolf or Wolfman? Okay, at least there was enough bravado in his performance.
Oh yeah, he was.
You know what I mean?
Do it doggy style with everybody.
Yeah, and he would turn in the bathroom and piss on his boss's shoes and all that shit. Like there was certain parts that were like memorable. I would like to see this one actually spend a little bit of time on origin, and then a little bit time on how it comes to be that this poor bastard becomes one. Whether that's,
I would be curious for the Dracula.
Yeah, that's the other one I'm interested in.
If it has origins and, you know, Vladimir or otherwise, what they're going to do with it. Really, you know, Frankenstein's monster is always an interesting one. I am one of those word Nazis that are, you know, it's not Frankenstein, it's Frankenstein's monster.
Yeah.
He never had a name. But Mary Shelley, did you know how that started? Why she wrote it?
It was basically a dare, wasn't it? They were all like...
Yeah, it was a little contest between writers.
They got together at some... one, and I forget, I think Byron was there, right? Lord Byron?
Correct. It was Byron's property.
Okay, so he invited them out.
Issued the challenge.
And they all come out. And and wasn't it basically within 2 weeks? Or it might have even been less time than that.
I think it was a weekend. She based it on a dream she had, which was also based on kind of a funny, wacky experiment she did when she was younger to try to bring her dog back to life.
Oh, great.
But yeah, so she was only 18 at the time when she wrote it.
See, that's the thing is, you know, I got to imagine that, you know, obviously if it was over the weekend, it was just a very good first draft. And I'm sure that she worked on it and refined it from that point forward. But
yeah, Byron was just taken aback by it.
Right.
And really pushed her to like, hey,
you got to do something with this.
You got to finish this shit.
Right. So yeah,
here's the pen. Here's the paper.
Who else was there besides Byron?
Her boyfriend, husband, his last name was Shelley. Several writers. off of hand, I can't think of anyone else's name except for Lord Byron because
He's Byron.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So now, when it comes to the Frankenstein story,
yes,
a couple things. One, I love that Mary Shelley wrote it. I love that it was this young girl who wrote it. I think that speaks to part of the horror that comes from that.
yeah. There's the premise has obviously got some roots in Prometheus and stuff like that, but it's a fresh take on it.
Very
if
fresh.
you want to
take.
call 200 years fresh, but it's a great story. It really makes
I would even say the same.
Age-old question: who's really the monster? Frankenstein's monster, Frankenstein, or the people?
The villagers.
Yeah,
right.
Who's the monster?
I also am a big fan of Bram Stoker's Dracula. I don't think that that's necessarily what they're doing, though. I don't think they're going that route.
That's the ultimate question.
So that would be interesting to me to see. Like, are we going back to Bela Lugosi kind of style, or are we going more Anne Rice, or are we going more, like modern day takes on this?
Sparkle.
Yeah, Willie Sparkle. Is this going to be a Twilight? And that's my fear is that they're going to try to make Dracula too sexy and too young. I think that it's like Gary Oldman as Dracula, I thought was amazing. I thought the way that he played that role in Bram Stoker's Dracula, I thought he was, to me, he was probably the best.
It's a beautiful movie.
Yeah, and it's a beautiful story, really.
But they need, with Dracula, to make him more of a monster. More
Nosferatu.
A
little bit more.
Even the storytelling needs to be more of this guy's a monster.
See, that's the thing that I think was lost in like the Anne Rice ones. And I'm a huge Anne Rice fan. I've read more Anne Rice than probably any other author. I went through a stage and just barreled through all of the Vampire Chronicles up to Armand, I think was the last one I read. And then I did the Mayfair Witches, which I loved.
Could not get into them. I don't know why.
I don't know why I did, but I didn't think I would, but I did. So I'm a huge fan of that. However, with that being said, they're too pretty. They're too approachable. They're too nice. You're going to want to have sex with this vampire. Which leads me to the last of the original kind of MGM monsters, DC monsters, which is the Mummy, which I think we can all agree no one wants to have sex with. No one's fucking the Mummy. You know what I mean? Like, at the end of the day, there's nothing about the Mummy that really makes... Like, I'm sorry, I just don't get it. I don't get the fucking Mummy. Even going back to Abbott and Costello Meet the Mummy, I was like, okay, even the fat guy can run faster than this little son of a bitch.
The eternal search for toilet paper.
That's what they should call it. That's what they should call it. They should call it The Mummy and the Eternal Search for Toilet Paper. And with that is another Elsie's Little fucking Pickles.
Oh, gotcha.